Cairo, Seattle.
It's time to get schooled with the professor, John Clayton.
Welcome to Schooled with the Professor. I'm John Clayton, and of course, every week we get in some of the great topics in the National Football League. And so today's topic is kicking. And of course, you're going to be joined by Adam Vinatieri, one of the best kickers in NFL history. And it's funny because kicking is the one thing that seems to be almost on the bad side of the management council, not the management council, but the competition committee and even owners and all that stuff, because kicking keeps getting better and better. I still remember even in the 70s, if you had a kicker that was going 70% accuracy on field goals, you had yourself a great kicker. Now, if you don't have one in the 90s, you really struggle. And so how the game has changed with the kickers is just amazing. And so much of it is, you can come in and as a kicker, I mean, you're going to be pretty much the lowest paid average of any guy. Maybe the punters might get a little bit less than you. Maybe the fullbacks might get a little bit less than you. But if you're going to be a good kicker right now, you're making $4 million a year and you're having to earn it. And, now there's so much demand. I mean, you have to be good as far as the kickoffs and put the ball at the back of the end zone if you have the ability to do that. But then they try to take that away by having the touchbacks now have the ball going out to the 25-yard line. They now, because kickers were so good with the extra points, it was almost 98% on extra points, they had to move everything back to the 15-yard line and turn it into a 33-yard event. And that dropped things down into like about 93% as far as the accuracy. Kickers are doing better now from the distance, from the standpoint they can now, so many 50-yard kicks, more so than ever before. So what are they doing? They're putting tracers on footballs, seeing where they're going to be so they can make a determination if they want to take the uprights and move them in and make it tougher for kickers. So the better the kickers and the more they keep on improving with their conditioning, their diet, their lifting, the strength, all those things, the talent, the athleticism, the more they want to try to go against them. But, if you have a great kicker, you're in great shape. I still remember, speaking of Adam Vinatieri, great kicker with the New England Patriots and won a couple Super Bowls with his ability to make key kicks. And then, he had the fortune of getting into free agency. The Patriots did not want to pay him the big dollars, and he goes to the Indianapolis Colts, and he becomes a great kicker. And so now you're talking about, a kicker who played for the two best teams through the early 2000s, from New England to Indianapolis. He was able to play with Tom Brady and able to play with Peyton Manning and have all the opportunities to get field goals and do those things. And that's why, you do it. And I still remember Bill Polian as a general manager. And, of course, remember, he was the general manager of the Indianapolis Colts and also was there in Carolina. He was in Buffalo. One of the first things he always did is make sure he had a good kicker because he realizes it's points. And when you, let's say, are taking a drive, it gives you so many options. All you basically have to do if you're going to be a good team is have your quarterback get you to the 33-yard line, because then you have an option to be able to get the field goal of 50, 51 yards. You go back 18 yards from that, so it's like it'd be from the 41-yard line or so. It's like you just want to just be in a position where you can get that field goal. So just get to the 33 and be able to pop that baby in, maybe get to the 43 if necessary. And where that's so important, particularly now with quarterbacks being so good out of shotgun and know-how-to offenses, is that you can be Russell Wilson, and you can be a quarterback that gets the ball inside your own 20, drive, get 3 or 4 completions, put yourself in a field goal to win the game, and it's exciting for the fans, and it's also exciting for the kickers. And I still remember some of the great kicks that were made. In fact, it's funny because sometimes kickers become so popular that they even have little stories done about them, or even fan clubs. Back when I was covering the Steelers in the 70s, they had a kicker named Roy Girella. Okay, he was, at that time they were making a little bit of that transition because you had still a few straight ahead kickers, but then, the soccer style kickers were so much better. Well, Roy Girella was a good soccer style kicker with his style, and, he was a little bit tough too. Small guy, but he would be able to sometimes go down on kickoffs and make tackles. Well, they had this fan club called Girella's Gorillas, and, it was real popular with the Steeler fans, and of course it made him even more popular in the community because, mean, he would be tough enough to be able to go out there and when necessary to make a tackle. And that's sometimes where, you're going to be 5'11", 185 pounds, and you're going down trying to stop guys 230 or better. And so Jarella's Gorillas came out of all that. And of course, that's at the time when kickers, hey, if you're in the high 70s, you were really good. But it's fun to see how popular a guy is and how consistent. And, the expectations are such that if you're a field goal kicker anymore and you miss 2 or 3 field goals, the fans almost want to say, where's a new kicker coming in? What's wrong with this kicker? Is there something wrong? I mean, that's how good these guys are. And honestly, what I fear for is some of the changes that the game may have that will go somewhat against the kickers. I mean, for example, if they do indeed, which I think would be a major, major mistake, take the tact of narrowing the uprights and making it tougher on field. I mean, you're taking points off the game because if you're sitting there at the 33, 35, 37-yard line, are you really going to be able to, convert that fourth down? I mean, what are you doing other than trying to take points off the board? You're trying to promote more exciting plays, but more exciting plays that take points off the board is not an exciting play. I think that would be wrong. And, you can see the next thing that is most likely going to happen is that within a couple of years, if not as early as next year, they're going to take away kickoffs. Because kickoff still is a very dangerous area where you have concussions and you have guys that get hurt, and you want to try to limit that as best as possible. But this year, what I thought was unusual is that it kind of worked for the kickers and worked against what the league was trying to do. So here it is. They come in and they have touchbacks and the ball moves to the 25-yard line. So what they want to try to do is have less kickoff returns. Well, end up is getting more kickoff returns because you're getting those mortar kicks and kickers are becoming good enough. They'll figure out a way to punch the ball down to the 5-yard line, have it high enough so the special teams group and the coverage teams can get down there and be able to stop it. And, it's worked to a standpoint that I know in the first 2 weeks of the season, kickoff returns, I think, went from an average after 2 weeks last year of 24 to about 21 yards, but there were more kickoff returns because more teams are taking the tact with their kickers to be able to punch the ball high. But it's funny, too, you talk about the age of specialization, and kickoffs, well, at least they're so important. I mean, it even got to the point where, teams would even bring in kickers, a third kicker, just so he was just there on kickoffs because, it was so important to get the ball back and not get any returns. And you can see that's going to slowly start fading away. Although in week 1 of the season, the Buffalo Bills had Jordan Gay out there as a guy that basically was the third kicker because he was brought in just for kickoffs. And he was inactive last week, but he's there just as a extra specialist. But, kickers are so good. And you go through some of the great kickers. I mean, you go through Jan Stenerud, who is just so unique. I mean, the former Kansas City Chief kicker, in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And if you're wondering, it is hard for kickers to make the Pro Football Hall of Fame because, they're out there maybe 6, 7, 8, 10 plays a game as opposed to guys that are out there, 60, 65 plays, making disruptive defensive plays or making key runs and all that. So it becomes a little bit different. So a guy like an Adam Vinatieri or a guy like Morton Anderson, they may make it at some point. They certainly deserve to make it because they're some of the greatest kickers in the history of the league. But unfortunately, it's tough. And I still remember some of the great memories of Morton Anderson. I mean, Morton, of course, was the consummate pro because he had such the long ability to kick the long field goals. He was always consistent. He would do it in big games. And I just remember his shoes because, I mean, he had these specially designed shoes that were just so soft and so good and so different. I mean, you see him put on the shoe and then boom, here comes this 53-yard kick that was amazing. And, it's just great to see. But it's great to see, perfection because, I mean, these guys very much are like golfers. I mean, they perfect their swing and can do it in, bad weather. They can do it in good weather, bad footing conditions. And I still get amazed when you see a kicker that has a high snap come and the holder tries to put the ball down and it's a little bit off. And then somehow, some way, they're able to make an adjustment in mid-stride and still get the ball for the field goal. I mean, that's where the great ones are. And one of the great ones we're going to be talking to is going to be Adam Vinatieri, who, believe it or not, he's done this now for over 20 years. Think about that. 20 years in the National Football League. What a great history, because he can go back and tell you about what kicking was like 21 years ago. And he plans to probably play 3 more years, if not longer. I mean, he can do it. I mean, it's fun. I mean, it's sometimes taxing on the body, but not to the point where it's affected his kicking, because in many ways he's more accurate now than he's ever been. I guess it does help to be in a dome. That does help. But of course, you're not in a dome when you go on some road games. But he's going to be joining us and talking about what it's like to be a kicker for this long, the game itself, and what it is being Adam Vinatieri in the National Football League. We are pleased to be joined by Adam Vinatieri, who's just had an unbelievable career as a kicker. And, of course, you talk about longevity. And, Adam, how amazing is it to think, as a kicker, you can go from 1986 to 2016 and still look ahead and have years ahead? I mean, have you looked back and think how long this thing has gone?
Well, you said 86. It was 96.
96. Sorry about that. Yeah,
31 years. But, yeah, it's been a long time. It's been very enjoyable. You know, I never thought I would be fortunate enough to play at a high enough level to play this long or stay injury free for this long or whatever. So I just take it one day at a time, and the years just started to add up, and been very blessed and very, very happy to play for 2 great organizations and had a lot of opportunities to help win games, and it's been great. It's been a lot of fun.
When you first got to the Patriots in 1996, what was your thought about how long your career, or were you just concentrating on just being able to stay with the team and do well, I'm sure?
Yeah, I was just hoping I wouldn't screw up that given day and be able to come back the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day. I guess I was a little wide-eyed coming in from South Dakota State and being a smaller school guy there, surrounded by all these superstars. So I just tried to keep my head down and my nose clean and make sure I did everything I could to give myself an opportunity to be successful and to try to stick around as long as I could. Again, like I said, I never knew I'd be able to be in the league for 21 years. I mean, there's not been a lot of guys that have played that long, and to be one of those guys is just an honor to be even in the same caliber as they did.
And I would imagine, how long do you think you can continue to do it? Because, I mean, the success rate just continues to stay at the same level.
Well, I set a lot of short-term goals. I don't do, I hate to think about how long it could be weeks, it could be months, it could be years. I just don't know. For me, I try to do everything I can to stay successful and to stay in the tip-top shape and keep my body in shape. And in a perfect world, it might be 2 or 3 more years. And, but I literally, it sounds cliche-ish, but I take it day at a time. And my only concern is trying to do the best I can to help my team win this week. And then we go to the following week. So I think at this point every year you reevaluate. But in a perfect world, if I stay healthy, I'd love to play 2 or 3 more.
How fortunate was it to be in 2 great organizations? I mean, the startup pretty much of the Patriots, as they had they go with Bill Belichick and then get Tom Brady. I mean, you're right in the midst of that. Then you go to the Indianapolis Colts during the Peyton Manning years. I mean, you talk about being fortunate enough and smart enough to be on the right franchises. It doesn't get any better than that.
Oh no, you're absolutely right. My initial getting into the league, I didn't have a lot of choices. I was happy that they wanted me on their team in New England, so that worked out good. That was just perfect timing, I guess. And 11 years ago, making the move to Indy, obviously I thought if I was going to leave one organization, I wanted to go to another winning, A-plus type organization that could potentially win Super Bowls. And I knew with a guy like you mentioned, Peyton Manning and the explosive offense that they had and Bill Polian and all of the people, the staff and the coaching staff and everything, I just thought this would be a place that I could continue to play at a high level and the success could potentially be there. So, yeah, I've been very, very fortunate to only play on two teams this long, and the success that both organizations and both franchises have had has dream come true. I couldn't have thought it would turn out as well as it has.
Well, why I feel so fortunate to talk to you is looking through, because you have the history now. You go back 21 years and talk about how kicking has evolved. Because, I mean, you go back when you came into the league. I mean, if you're kicking 78, 79%, you're pretty good. But now it's almost at the stage on field goals where it's like you're almost, I mean, just about everybody's in the high 80s and 90s. They're kicking it longer. They're kicking it better. I mean, it's been quite an evolution for kickers.
It really has. I think kickers back in the day were really good athletes too. But I think the things that maybe have really changed is now, football is a full-time job. You really, with our off-season workouts and OTAs and all this stuff, it's a 24/7 kind of thing. So I think kickers have continued, like you mentioned, have gotten more athletic, bigger and stronger. They're keeping their bodies in better shape. And so they not only can play longer, but statistically, you're right, they're getting more accurate every year, it seems like. And you're right, you got to be about 90% to feel pretty comfortable about keeping your job.
I know. And what type of training has a lot of the kickers, including yourself, done to get bigger and stronger?
Well, obviously, the strength coaches and our staff plays a big role in that. Obviously, it's not just for offensive linemen and defensive linemen. We've got our skill-specific lifting groups and running groups to try to keep us, healthy and strong and explosive. We have nutritionists and chefs here that try to make sure you're eating as healthy and clean as possible to keep your weight under control and making sure that you're eating good calories, not, empty calories to keep yourself strong. So I think guys are starting to understand the importance of nutrition and sleep habits and a workout regimen that's good, not only that builds muscle and keeps you strong, but keeps you from getting injured and little things like that. So we have a full staff of people that try to keep our team on the field and playing well. And I'm sure it's the same across the league.
Well, how different would that be from the time that you came into the league? I mean, go back to 1996. I mean, how different is that training, and how different is the attention to it different now than it was back then?
I think there's a lot more knowledge in it for sure. Back in the day, and I'm dating myself, so excuse me if I don't remember everything how it was 21 years ago. But we had strength coaches and stuff back then. But I think now it's more specific to your positions, more corrective, and more making sure you're keeping injury-free and limber. And it's not just going into the weight room and bench pressing and squatting. There's a lot more to it now, a lot of corrective lifting and stuff like that as well. In 96, I don't think we had a nutritionist or much in regards to concerned about food and nutrition. I think it was, you left practice and you went and got McDonald's or something on the way home, and that's a thing of the past. I think guys really take care of their body and much more self-conscious or more conscious about the what they're putting in their bodies.
Well, and the one thing that's so strange about it seems like as kickers keep getting better, the league tries to keep making it tougher. I mean, we had that spell where they got the K balls. Then, of course, now you have the situation where they want you kicking the extra point from the 15-yard line. It seems like the better the kicking, the more things they try to do to take things away from the kickers.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think they're trying to minimize the importance of field goal kickers and punters and kickoff. They've done some things with the kickoffs with now a longer touchback. They've talked about getting rid of touchbacks. They talked about maybe narrowing the goalposts a little bit more to make it so our field goal percentages aren't quite as high. It is what it is. I think guys are going to keep adapting and keep figuring it out. I mean, if their goal or their one is 50% accuracy on field goals, well, if you keep on moving things back or narrowing the uprights, at some point you're going to get there. I don't know what the end result or what the end goal is, but kickers have continued to get better and overcoming some of that stuff. But you notice, like last year was the first year with the longer extra points, and I think it did make a difference. I mean, it was converted low 80s or something like that on field goal extra point or on extra points, where years past it was 99% or something. So I think that's not a guaranteed gimme anymore, and you see some of these. Sometimes you see it missed, and it's making a difference in the outcome of the game. So, at one point you think that they're trying to minimize the value of kickers or to make their plays less important, but by making it more difficult, it seems like it's making our position even more important.
Yeah, and that's the weird part. It's like, you would think that in any position you're rewarded by excellence, and kicking has become so good that the excellence is there, yet that doesn't seem to satisfy some of the people on the competition committee and some of the people around the league.
Yeah, I can't wait till they start taking receiver gloves away from the receivers because they're catching too many balls. I don't think they'll ever do that. I'm being facetious, obviously, because it's an offensive-minded sport, and people want to see touchdowns and people want to see scoring. But yeah, for some reason, us kickers are the whipping boys, maybe a little bit, in the sense that they're trying to make it more difficult on us for some reason. But that's okay. Like I said, we'll continue to adapt, and we'll hopefully continue to excel.
Yeah, and that's just so weird too, because the one thing that the league is conscious of is scoring points, and of course kickers can go like yourself and get 4 or 5 field goals in a game. It increases the scoring, and it's like, to make it tougher on the kickers takes points off the board.
Well, yeah, I guess I've never really even thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right. I think everything that they try to do, you see some of the rules and stuff are more favored toward the offense to hopefully help them score more points. But, they're just trying to make it competitive. And if that's what they're doing, then great.
Yeah, and I guess the satisfaction of being able to conquer all those things, because, all through 21 years, you've been able to, whatever has been put up in front of you, whether it's been, rule changes or big games, you've always succeeded.
Well, most of the time. We don't always make every kick, but definitely try to do as much as we can to help the team win games.
Well, Adam, congratulations on a great career, and hopefully a career that's going to continue 3, 4, maybe even 5 more years.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Hey, Adam, thank you so much.
My pleasure. All right, take care.
Hope to see you soon.
All right, bye-bye.
News, everyone!
It's time
to ask the professor.
I know the truth.
Welcome back to Schooled with the Professor. Remember, each week you can get a chance to ask me questions that you have related to the podcast. Just get on Twitter and use the hashtag ClaytonSchooled. This week we're talking to Adam Vinatieri, and our question of the week comes from Angel453. Angel asks, with the NFL doing more and more to try to change the kicking game in the name of player safety, is there a chance that Adam Vinatieri is the last kicker of his kind we'll see? I guess you could maybe no, because again, his big thing is his ability to kick field goals, and of course, there's still going to be kickers kicking field goals. You're still going to have the need for guys that kick extra points. But I can tell you, with what they're doing, it now will cause a problem in developing young kickers. And that, of course, enhances the value of Adam Vinatieri. In fact, he even said it during the podcast that, you go back and you can see that the more you change the rules, the more it makes the kicker valuable, because particularly the experienced kicker, because they've been through everything. And a guy like Adam Vinatieri has been through everything. The problem is, are you going to be able to successfully develop that next kicker, knowing that he's going to have to experience things that he's not used to? And, once you start to make some misses and you don't do well, all of a sudden people want to get rid of that kicker. Like, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes in Tampa Bay. They used a second-round pick on a kicker, and, he's on paper one of the best kickers to come out in the last several years, but a second-round pick seems to be very high. And during the preseason, he was missing a couple field goals, and people are kind of wondering about him. And why is it? Because the game is so different for kickers coming into the league, because you have to try to adjust to so many things that you're not used to in college. You have to now be able to, I know talking to Stephen Hauschka last year, and talking to other kickers, an extra point from 15 yards is not like an extra point. it's a 33-yard field goal, and you have to have the mentality to do it. But if you notice, when you have a guy that's driving down the field, right, team that's driving down on offense, the kicker's usually over there just, getting ready. You'll see him take a football and have the placement guy there and just, try to kick it so that, he kicks it into the net and gets warmed up, because you do need to get warmed up instead of trying to go in there cold. But what happens if you get a interception on a pick six that goes back for a touchdown, or you get an 80-yard play? You've got to go on the field cold and be able to do that without any warm-ups, and that's difficult. Now, it's okay for the guys like Adam Vinatieri, Stephen Hauschka, guys that have been around long, because they've seen just about everything, and they know how to adjust, but the young kicker may not be able to do that. So in many ways, it enhances the value of kickers once you change rules, because, you want the best to be the best, and the ones that don't fit in, like, for example, like an Adam Vinatieri, if they take away kickoffs, he can probably kick about 3 or 4 more years without any problems, because all he has to worry about is the kicks, because just the extra points and the field goals. That's it. A lot of times as you get older and you get into colder weather, because what you're doing is kicking balls that are harder because of the environment and the cold weather and all that stuff, you notice those kickoffs go shorter. Well, if they go too short and you're not getting it to the goal line or near the goal line, then all of a sudden you need to bring in a specialist to be the kicker, because, again, the longer you're in the game, the harder it's going to be able to maintain that ability to get the kickoffs all the way to the goal line or out into the end zone for the touchbacks. And so in many ways, it's not going to create the last. The good kickers and the great kickers are always going to survive, and in many ways, they may actually get a little bit more juice as far as contract negotiations, because if a lot of the young guys start to fail, what ends up happening is now you have to go ahead and, really struggle and overpay somebody to come in and do that. But I just am amazed sometimes that the more a position can be successful, and kickers, whether they're not considered to be the tough football players that go out there all the time, or whether they're considered to be the guys that aren't going to be the physical guys, they keep getting better and better and better, and their reward is rule changes to make their jobs more difficult. But if you're Adam Vinatieri, if you're Stephen Hauschka, if you're some of the best kickers in football, that you now have more leverage to be able to ask for a little bit more money. They're not going to sometimes do it, but you're under the control of the team, and so that's why kickers can go a little bit longer. And Angel 453, if indeed they do make those rule changes, no, it's not going to eliminate the Adam Vinatieris. In fact, it makes them more valuable and guys that can be assets to your team. Good kickers are good, and they're very good at what they do, and it's good for the National Football League to continue to enhance, not necessarily penalize, the success of kickers. That's it for this week's edition of Schooled. You can follow me on Twitter at ClaytonESPN and send me your NFL questions with hashtag ClaytonSchooled for a chance to get your questions on the air and on the podcast. If you have a minute, please let's have a review on iTunes. Thanks for listening. Class dismissed.